Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we'll be checking out a track by an act named Ronson titled Cold Hearts. This is the official video, and if we switch over to here it's on YouTube, and this was shot by Miles Suave. So without further ado, we're going to listen through this track from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Starting with some really pretty guitars. Oh yeah.
Some chrome hearts, champagne for the pain. Champagne for the pain.
I'm not gonna get a chance to talk before we go any further, so I'm just gonna go in now. I just love how quickly things came up with the vocal chops, the various vocal layers there, the little riser there with the guitars on the sides there. It's just, I love the attention to detail.
If this coming, the options glow up. This life we live really made some soldiers. I found my way, never needed no older. What would you do if you was in my shoes? Love not Friday, the belly cool. My queen is pink, in my bankroll blue. Yeah. Champagne for the pain, no gain. 1-on-1, now I'm making it rain. Since I lost bro, yeah, I had to make a change for the chain, so 9 was the same. B22 to your point, Henny on the floor, you the one that I do this for. For it was love before, but it's crazy how quick love turns to war. Bro, gotta keep the 4 here, you know, we the ones that they scheming on. You see, I can't stay there before. If I slip, then I feel my kick in the door. Hard times weren't given, team say winning, but I had to get more.
Just, you know, how, you know, in your face those drums are. There's the distortion on those kicks there with the sort of like how sleek those clicks are, or those clap parts there. The percussion's divine. I like the way the vocals are phrased. There's an airiness to them, a sadness to the way they're portrayed, so the vocals sound authentic, telling the story they are. The guitars continue in various points of this, you know, frequency spectrums, or stereo field, should I say. So things are constantly moving in and around the place, and it's a very kind of bittersweet, almost melancholic tune we have going on here.
If this coming, the options blow. This life we live really made some soldiers. I found my way, never needed no older. What would you do if you was in my shoes?
Great octave staging there.
My queen is pink, in my bankroll blue.
It's just nice to have it quiet here. It's nice to have it fade out. Is this the end of the song? No, it's not. Oh, that's just the motif carrying us out. Cold Hearts. It really was one of those tracks. This just kind of came and left, didn't it? Set its piece, had a couple of hooks, one on either side, verse in the center. And now we're left with the conclusion. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track, Cold Hearts by Ronson. What do I think this track is about? I think if I gauge it, it's about him selling his soul or selling his heart and basically, you know, in exchange for the Bentley, in exchange for that lifestyle, that success. It's about, he talks about the lifestyle of breeding some soldiers, or like having some soldiers. I'm assuming what he means is that the way they live basically hardens people, you know, makes them so that they have to kind of like laugh now, cry later, etc. You know, I think it's an interesting move to make, discussing the what's going on behind the scenes for someone who maybe is successful and looks like everything's going well on the outside, but they're just struggling on the inside. I think it's an interesting angle for Ronson to explore here. I think it's cool. Actually, I like it. You know, it's nice to have that humanity to it, because I think a lot of people who seem like that are actually struggling, and it's great that we were brave enough, and, you know, to talk about it. So that's cool. Good stuff. No worries at all. I think the story makes sense. It's told well. I understood what was going on, thanks in no small part to the lyrics at the bottom of the screen, which is great. You guys might not have been able to see it because I have like the little title card down the bottom of the video, but anyways, well done on that front. I think that in addition to what was going on with the obviously the story that was going on, the vocals were handled well. They, you know, the rapped parts, there was a lot going on with the vocals, but the main part was the rapping, which was in like the verse, and then maybe the cleanish vocals and the chorus parts, you know, just to kind of go between them. I liked the fact that it was such a laid-back, chilled-out performance by Ronson. Here, I think that it makes sense with the story we're telling. If it's super hype and energetic, then it doesn't really make sense kind of tonally, so smart move there. There was not only just the sort of chest voice, normal range stuff, there was also some interesting sort of metatune, autotune stuff up in the top end, like an octave spread stuff going on like in the hook sections as like a call and response with what was going on in those main sections. And I think that was cool just from a tonal padding perspective there. A way of keeping the listener engaged by not just having the same line repeated, you have it almost like a chord, if that makes sense. So I think that the attention to detail with keeping those simple messages even more exciting for the listener was a smart idea. And I think that we didn't have that all the time. Often it was just Ronson on their own talking to you. Maybe with some cooler responses of his own voice there, but typically it was more of a solo thing, which made sense because he's talking about himself as if he is alone. I think the tone of the performance there, you know, emotionally makes sense with the story. All in all, very well connected. I get it. That's cool. Outside of the story and the vocals, the length of this track was about 2 minutes, and I think that's a really good length for a track like this. If you've got a simple concept you want to communicate, you don't necessarily need to have it go on for like a movie length. It can be like a couple minutes, have the chorus and then decide the hook line. Give someone the main message and then elaborate and then remind them of that message and then like bounce. And that's often enough for most people, especially in genres like hip hop and rap like this, where traditionally, especially nowadays, a lot of the music is shorter. It just doesn't need to be longer. A lot of people can rap really well. A lot of people are capable of really sort of poetic with their voice. It's almost gotten to a point where it's better to do less so that you have the listener engage with you for that period so that they know what they can get next time. Because if you kind of play with the listener's expectations too much, it can kind of almost be playing too hard to get, if that makes sense. So I think that the length of it was good. The structure of the hook verse hook was good, with the motif being instantiated immediately, with like the guitars, a hint of like the percussion there, the rises, the low end stuff going on there with and then obviously we had the really kind of heavy drum kit with the distorted kind of bass drum and the claps and such like that coming in those hook parts, etc. And we didn't have it heavy all the time. We had dynamic range and changes in energy levels and the intensity of the parts. I think the verse was a little more sort of chilled out than we had in the hook because that needed to be the heavier, more sort of like bombastic part. And we had variations of the various guitar themes within it, that kind of lo-fi-ish kind of device. And I think that was a smart move, because if you had the same arpeggiated motif the entire time, it would kind of become kind of dull or disingenuous after a while there. It almost to a distracting intent. Even if it's a 2-minute track, you just can't take for granted that one element or one sort of chord idea or bass line is going to be enough for the entirety of a song. Not that we really went too far from the main sort of like 2-note bass line, maybe 3 notes if we had a variation on the tails, but like outside of that, the bass line was nice and thick and wasn't there all the time, so when it made its presence, it was welcome. And a lot of songs have that same kind of like repeating the bass line structure but changing the different chords and extensions on top. I think as well it was the different vocal layers, like some repeaters and maybe some stuff on the sides, maybe different vocalists shipping in for some sort of Foley sample stuff as well, occasionally straying away from the center of the stereo field, kind of focusing on the sides there to kind of like surround the listener, kind of to overwhelm the senses a little bit, just simply because that's what you want to get someone sucked in sometimes, especially if the lyrics are relatively simple. You need the music and everything else to kind of step up and kind of absorb you into their world. And sincerely, I think it was a really good audiovisual experience. I think that the music video elevated the experience of the song, but I'm sure the song by itself would be great too. I'm sure that those kicks would be hella fine on a sort of subby stereo system, so that'd be great. But outside of that, I think the motif itself sounded kind of bittersweet and melancholic, as if the person was like happy with what they had, but then also was aware that it's kind of broken them a little bit by that virtue of that, and they're not sure really where to go from here. Kind of confused and kind of like a little bit, they just don't know how to feel. So maybe they're a bit numb. That's how the motif came across to me, and I think that makes sense with the story and the vocals, so they're all very well connected. I mean, and finally, the stereo recording, mixing and mastering. In general, this is very good. I have these headphones, these Sony ones, and they're very, very unfavorable if your mix is not ideal. And I think that the mixing in general on this track was great. I like how the vocals were placed both in the center and the sides of the stereo field, the leveling of them with like the guitar parts, drums, bass, any synth elements, etc. It was all good. It was well placed and well mannered, and I think there were EQing and filtering of the various elements was great. There was a little bit of meta tuning and stuff going on with the vocals in certain perspectives. Nice sort of compression and a little bit like reverb tails on notes, kind of make them a bit more misty and ambient, and to help things sit in with the rest of the mix without being too dry. The bass and the low end kind of being well metered by the really kind of in-your-face kick drums there that kind of sidechain the mix in a way that was meaningful, but never too much. And, again, the guitars on top kind of fluctuating and floating around the left and right sides of the headphones and speakers. It's really well balanced. I was happy with the sound design there and the choice to not just have things on one side of the stereo field. Sometimes they'd bounce between the sides and just sort of ping-pong delay going between. I think that was really cool. There was careful attention to detail paid in the studio production to get it sounding right, and I think that it paid off in the end. But yeah, basically, outside of that, there was dynamic range to this. Things came down especially at the end before the reintroduction of the motif for that outro card part. And the leveling again was good, and the compression was handled well, and it was nice to land without pumping, so the limiting was sorted. And basically, this is my review of Ronson and their track Cold Hearts, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and a YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time as they need the help. More than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.